Okay.
But Nathanael, where'd he go? He's my now.
What do you need, Rabbi? We'll bring him in.
Nathanael. He's standing by the door.
What? There's no
Where's the Moshiach ship? Where's the Moshiach ship?
This sefer I'm holding in my hands is a sefer written by the Maharal of Prague. In addition to making a Goylam, he is also known for his deep understanding of Kabbalah and his clear explanation of many inyanim in Torah, many topics in Torah, in more of a philosophical way. So he has a very unique approach to a lot of things in Torah. Certain people put a lot of their study focus on the Maharal's learning, Maharal's teachings. Now, the Maharal wrote, among the many Svarim that he wrote, one of them is called Netzach Yisrael. The Sefer Netzach Yisrael is a full Sefer that is discussing the Geula, the coming of Moshiach. That's the objective of this Sefer, is to explain about Moshiach. So I thought it fit to take something from this Sefer and let's hear a little bit what the Maharal has to say about the subject of the coming of Moshiach. Now the reason it's called Netzach Yisrael, why Netzach Yisrael? Because unlike the other nations of the world, which have certain periods of really powerful periods where they feel like we're going to be the strong nation for the rest of history, and then they have some low periods where they're completely wiped out the next day. The Jewish people aren't like that. The Jewish people, we do have our up periods and our low periods, but we have high and lows, but we're not getting wiped out. So although certain periods in time Shlomo we are very strong, very powerful, and now or throughout different times of Golos it went down, down, and down, till you could say the Holocaust was maybe the lowest, and now from then it's kind of on the rise of Jewish power. But in any case, Netzach Yisrael, the Jewish nation, is going to be around forever. So he starts off his Akdama before he writes the whole Sefer, and he quotes number one a pasuk. The first thing we're going to quote is a pasuk from Yirmiyah. Yirmiyah says the following, and we're going to quote the pasuk and then see how the Gemara analyzes this pasuk. The pasuk quote is the following. I'm first going to read it in the Hebrew, in the language of Yirmiyah, and then we will translate. Yirmiyah says the following: Hine yamim boim, behold, days are coming. Okay. We will not say in those days, Chai Hashem asher hela as Yisrael miyad Mitzrayim. We will not say by the living God as a swear in the name of Hashem, and we're going to praise Hashem, the God that took us out of Egypt, which is the way we praise Hashem now. The God who took us out of Egypt. In the days to come, we won't say that anymore. What will we say? Ki'im. We're going to say, Chai Hashem asher hela, the living God, who lifted us up, Vasher Hevi, and who brought as Zera Beis Yisrael, the seed of the Jews, meaning the Jewish people, may edit Tzfayna from the north land, and we call Harati, and from all the land, Asher Hedach Hidachtim Shama, which I have put them there. So in other words, today we praise Hashem by saying the God who took us out of Egypt. But in the future, that won't be the way to praise Hashem anymore. We're going to praise Hashem, the God who took us out of exile and brought us to the Holy Land. Now this shows something. This shows kind of in contrast. If something small happened in your life, and then a bad thing, and then you got saved from it, okay, you're very happy. Something much worse happens, you get saved from it, so you might forget about the first one and just concentrate on the last one, which we'll see further how the Gemara analyzes this. So it seems to kind of be saying that the Geula in the future is so great that we're almost going to forget about the Geula of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Now, to such a point where Ben Zayma in the Gemara in Brachos, Ben Zayma says we won't even mention anymore Yetzias Mitzrayim. Today we make Kiddush, Yetzias Mitzrayim. In Kriya Shema, Yetzias Mitzrayim. In Ten Commandments. In the Sukkah, Mitzvah Sukkah, we're remembering Mitzrayim. For Shabbos, Mitzrayim is all over the place. However, it seems from here, when Moshiach comes, we're going to mention the Geula Hasidah, the future redemption, because that will be much greater. So Amar Lahem ben Zayma L'Chacham ben Zayma told L'Chachamim, he said, wait a step. He said, will we mention? After the Mishnah, is really a quote. The Mishnah says that we're going to mention Mashiach, Yetzias Mitzrayim, evenly Yemei Mashiach. So Zayma said, what? Yemei Mashiach, we're going to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. What about this pasuk, the pasuk from Yirmiyah? What about that? So the Chacham answered him, no. This pasuk doesn't mean that we can completely forget about Yetzias Mitzrayim. However, in comparison to the Geula Hasidah, Yetzias Mitzrayim is going to be secondary. So there's going to be remembrance of Yetzias Mitzrayim on one hand, but that's not going to be the main one. The main remembrance is going to be the Geula Hasidah. Now the Gemara brings a pasuk to support this. There's another pasuk that says, like we find the pasuk says, don't remember the first things, and don't think about them. And it analyzes, when it said don't remember at all, that was referring to certain redemption, but when it said don't think about it, it's referring to Yetzias Mitzrayim. And Yetzias Mitzrayim, it says don't think about it, implying not that don't forget about it, just don't think about it too much. So there will, on the one hand, be Yetzias Mitzrayim, remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim. On the other hand, the Geula is the main thing. And it's kind of like we find by Yaakov and Yisrael. By the other Avos, by Abraham and Yitzchak, by Abraham, originally his name was Avram. And then he got an extra hate to his name, Abraham. Now if you look into the Chumash, once the Torah introduces his name Abraham, you'll never find another passage afterwards which will call him Avram. He introduced Abraham, and then he's referred to, therefore, as Avraham. However, by Yaakov, although Hashem changed his name from Yaakov to Yisrael, if you continue learning in the Chumash, you'll find that the Torah refers to him again as Yaakov, even after his name was changed. So we find this concept of even after a greater thing, even after he got the greater name Yisrael, he still kept the name Yaakov. And the Gemara compares this to Yetzias Mitzrayim and the Geula Hasidah, and says, just like by Yaakov, even after he was Yisrael, which is greater, we still don't forget about Yaakov. So too, although Yetzias Mitzrayim is not as great as the Geula Hasidah, but we still will remember it. Okay. Now, that's kind of factual. The question really is why. Understanding why do we still remember Yetzias Mitzrayim if the Geula Hasidah will be so much greater? In answering this, the Marsha, he mentions another kind of matter-of-the-fact answer, that Yetzias Mitzrayim is mentioned in the Chumash. So how can we forget about it? The Chumash says, taking Yidden out of Egypt, so we can't ignore that. So even when Moshiach comes, we're still going to have to follow what it says in the Chumash, remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim. But he doesn't give an explanation as to why. What's the objective of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim if we already have something greater? To answer this, the Maral gives his kind of philosophical approach. And it goes as following. When you have a cause and effect, cause and then an effect, is it possible to find the effect living independently without the cause pushing it into life, helping it out?
No way.
So some people say no way. Philosophical question. Cause and effect. Father and a child.
Very different.
It has a father and a child. Even after the father passed away, the child still exists.
They push him out. They already did push him.
It did push him, but you can find it there without. So you can find the effect without having the cause being right near it. You can have a person builds a house, and the house stands even after the contractors got their payment and now went home. And they're building someone else's house. The house is still standing. So similarly, you can find an effect there without having the cause right next to it. However, says Maral, this is only true if it's not the complete cause. If it's not the only thing that makes it there. In addition to the house, the wood, and all of the material brought together by the contractor, there's also the ground in which the house is standing on. The house is not standing there solely as a cause or as an effect from the contractor. There's other factors involved that are not in the hands of the contractor, as the ground holding up the house that can't exist without the house being. When you take away the ground, you don't have a house. As in the case of a father and a child, it's true, it's the father's seed that grows into being a child. But there's aspects that don't come from the father. The nature of the child is something that was, I guess, it wasn't made by the father. It was implanted from God in the father, and is kept by God alive in the child. It's not something it's not only coming from the father. Anything that would only come from a certain source, the source has to constantly be there. It speaks about this a lot in Yesh Me'ayin. The difference between Yesh Me'ayin and Yesh Me'yesh. And you get us in Shar Yichol Ve'amunah. I think it's Perek Beis. The Alter Rebbe explains this concept that when you have a real chiddush, something that's completely new, whatever making it has to always be there, or else the thing stops existing. When you have someone if someone builds a house, so he didn't create the wood, he didn't create all the material there, and therefore could stand without it. But when you have Yesh Me'ayin, something that's completely a new chiddush, it needs the hand of its creator to constantly be there. So he compares this back to the Geula of Mitzrayim and the Geula Hasidah. The Geula of Mitzrayim was the start, was the foundation of the Jewish nation. Without the Geula of Mitzrayim, there is no such thing as the Geula Hasidah. Without having a nation who then went into Galus and then had great miracles, you can't have a Geula Hasidah, a final redemption. The only way possible to have a final redemption is through the foundation of the Geula Mitzrayim. And therefore, even when Moshiach comes, which will be a much greater Geula, and in comparison to the miracles then, we'll remember those miracles, not so much the miracles of Mitzrayim, but Mitzrayim is still our foundation. That's what we're sitting upon. And therefore we always have to mention also Mitzrayim. The Rebbe also speaks about this. I don't remember all the exact explanations. It opened the sinner. So, yeah. Yeah. The Rebbe also has explanations why still when yeah. So I think it's a fitting thing for a shir, Will Moshiach. So this is a good sefer if anyone wants to look up to give a shir. There's a lot of good material there. Okay. Yeah.